Physics and logic on a level supreme. It's a curved reality, splitting flurf dreams.
Hey folks, how's it going here? It's Curious UK. So something I'd seen a while back on a live stream. I've seen Mikey Smith passing out these flyers when he's doing his flat earth advocating, or what the heck he calls it. So I was kind of curious, well, what's on those flyers? And it just so happens a friend of mine, I think it's ICSpin, was able to send me a copy of the flyers, a PDF. So I thought, well, let's go over this this flyer. I don't think this is done by Mikey Smith. I think he's got it from somewhere else, from a group or somebody else's that makes these. Could be wrong, but it's just my assumption there. So we can go over a few of the claims here. I'll try to go over piece by piece. So start with the top at the very beginning, and we'll debunk them. So let's start off with this one. One here. Alright, so the first claim is talking about bubbles in space, and talk about how NASA uses a pool to do some of the training to work on the ISS.
Images. NASA is still unable to remove bubbles in space. Bubbles in space. This summer, get ready for the revelation.
So yeah, this is something flat earthers try to claim, is that that's bubbles in space. So they actually maybe don't understand or realize the physics of bubbles, because they're trying to claim this is in the big massive pool tank that they use for training, down in Houston or somewhere like in southern states, and they're trying to claim this bubbles in space, but it's actually in water. That's not true. If it was bubbles in water, then it'd actually be clustering and they go up. You ever been inside of a swimming pool, blue, bubbles go straight up, they go towards the top because it's got buoyancy. What they're actually seeing there, and this has been explained many times, is that that's some ice particles and ice crystals that may have formed on the outside the ISS. I mean, a bit of condensation, or on some of the equipment and stuff like that may have had a bit of condensation that has developed on it, being inside and going from a warmer environment to a cooler environment, and it's formed condensation, then it's getting knocked, and then it's ice particles and dust, and probably being a bit of dust, but mainly it's just a bit of maybe ice formed on there, and when it's knocked, it's just kind of floating off. But if you notice, it kind of spreads out, like fans out in all different directions. So it can't be bubbles, it's not bubbles, it's not how bubbles work. Unfortunately, flat earthers are too stupid to realize this, and Mikey Smith, obviously parroting all the BS that he's heard from watching YouTube videos, thinks that he's proved something with his little thing on his number one here, but it's bullshit. And it's a quick Google search and maybe a little bit of having rational thinking, and you realize that it's not bubbles in space, it's not how bubbles work. And then you think, well, it's very, very cold in space, and ice, a little bit of ice, a layer of ice may form on things. So that's all that is. But I'll show you a video from the ISS tank, and you'll see how the bubbles work on that, and you'll see how it's completely different than what I just showed you.
Where all astronauts start to train for spacewalks.
Now watch, has gone in, this is the training facility. Now watch which way the bubbles go, and how they all seem to cluster together, and they all go in one direction. They all go straight up, they all stay kind of clustered together. See how all the bubbles go up? This is in the pool. This is the training facility, but flat earthers claim that this is what they say is ISS when they show all the footage. But look at which way these go, and then they try to claim there's bubbles in space. I'll put up again just a quick video there where show what flat earthers are trying to claim, and look and see what the water is actually doing. So as you can clearly see, they're not shimmering, they're not doing what the bubbles do. We have a big thing and it goes smaller. This is just simply ice particles being knocked off stuff, and that's why it's spreading out in all directions, because there's zero gravity. Unfortunately, flat earthers are just too stupid to be able to realize this simple fact. Let's continue on. So, to say that that's, well, it's truly debunked, and it's just a misunderstanding on flat earthers' side there. So the next claim on this pamphlet is that NASA CGI blunders and saying that NASA's been caught countless times faking space and faking their stuff. That's just emphatically and empirically wrong. No flat earther has ever caught NASA doing any kind of CGI or faking stuff. If NASA uses composite images where aren't fake, where it means a collection of different images have been stitched together to make one large image, like say some things of like the Earth, like the 2002 when it remade the blue marble, which, you know, the original ones from the 1970s is actually on physical film. You can see it yourself if you want. But and you can go to the University of Arizona, or you go to the website called March to the Moon and look at over 30,000 different photographs from Gemini, Apollo, Mercury, and you can see all the images that are taken. And in fact, you can see they're on film, and they're all been scanned in because they had to wait till the scan technology was good enough that they can actually have high quality scans. And you can actually download these. You can even download the original files, which are massive in size, but highly detailed. NASA also will, if it does do anything like, say, a recreation or a simulation, then they are very transparent and make it quite open and honest of when they do this stuff. But they don't fake planets. You can look in the telescope and look at planets yourself. Look at my channel if you want. I have observations that I have done myself of planets like Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, and I think I even got Neptune once. And it's very hard to get that one, but I was lucky and was able to find it. And yeah, and they're 100% legit photographs that I took myself with my own camera, my own telescope. And a telescope is just a series of mirrors, that's all it is, and it magnifies it. So yeah, no flat earthers ever caught NASA faking anything. The only time you'll see this is when flat earthers have actually faked a video and put something in, and it's usually flat earthers using CGI to, I didn't claim that NASA did it, but they're all like just false videos to try to push a false narrative. Now this is something that flat earthers don't actually understand. I actually did a video showing NASA's budget in comparison to other agencies. And if flat earthers really want to kick off about how much money is being wasted, look to see how much interest payments that the US makes just on the debt that they're in right now. A lot more than this. So a lot of flat earthers kick off and talk about NASA and NASA's budget and stuff, but they don't actually look into how much NASA actually makes. And something like their budget accounts for only a few pennies on the dollar of how much the federal government puts out and awards different budgets. Also, NASA has to account for every single penny that they spend on every single program. I'm going to show you just like a breakdown. You can look this up dead easy. Just go on Google. You can download the PDF showing NASA's their budget request that they give to the federal government. You can look at 2025. I'm showing 2024 because that was obviously last year. And this year here, they're still trying, getting all the different programs. But you can look it up and you can break it down. NASA has to be transparent with how much money they spend as taxpayers' money, as well as how much money they bring in from other programs, because NASA actually does pay some of the private sector for some things like that and how much they're paying. And also NASA contributes back towards the economy. In fact, a lot of times they contribute more than they bring. But I'm going to show you that, and then I'm going to show you a breakdown of 2024, how much the U.S. paid in just its debt repayment on its for its interest. Just interest that the U.S. has accumulated, just has to pay the interest on the debt that they have. And you tell me which one is higher. So here we have the financial year 2024, Let's kind of show you here. This is what how much they brought in the other years, as well as how much they project to ask for the other years coming up, 2025, 2026, 20. But if you go down here, we look, you can see how everything is all broken down, slotted, how much they're going to spend each program, and for 2024, 2025, and so on, and how much that the budget that they're requesting. Now, this is the budget request that was sent into the federal government, and obviously Congress has to approve on this. They can look it over, see if it's worth what they want to spend. Obviously, everything has to be broke down. Now, one thing with NASA is if they don't spend it, let's say they do an Artemis program and they're asking for $2 million and they don't spend the full $2 million, then the rest of the money goes back to the government. They don't get to spend it on something else. That money is only allotted to that program. So each thing that they ask for when they're looking financial, they have to spend on that program the money they've asked for. Now, let's have a look and see how much interest payments the U.S. has paid in 2024. So NASA in 2024 spent $24.8 billion. The interest payments, just interest payments that the U.S. spent on for the debt was $1.12 trillion. So if flat earthers want to start kicking off about how money is being wasted and stuff, perhaps they should go speak to the federal government and ask them why they're having to spend over $1 trillion in just the interest payments for their country. And maybe look at NASA, look at the budget and see like that, and notice that if the national debt interest payments is over $1 trillion and NASA's spending $24 billion, but they have to account for every single penny. They need to ask, why is the interest payments of the national debt over $1 trillion? And stop harping on what NASA's budget is. Now let's see if we can look into more of this pamphlet that Mikey Smith has been passing out, and I think he's had a lot of help making this, but it's got his name on it. I looked at it where it folds over to the front, and it's just the misinformation that seems to be spreading. So let's have a look and see what else he's got on here and see if we can debunk it as well, which shouldn't be that hard. Alright, so it looks like Mikey has his top 10 proofs of flat earth, so let's go over them one by one and debunk them all. Okay, let's start with claim 1. It's saying balloon footage and saying that high altitude balloon, which is really quite funny. So this is one that's often used by flat earthers. Now if you look at the one on the left there that they claim is the earth flat, you notice how the earth is below the horizon. And there's a very good reason why they only use that screenshot. And that's because it's from something called a little piggy cam. And it's a fisheye lens. And when you have the horizon just below just below the center of frame, on a barrel distorted lens like a fisheye lens, it kind of will flatten things out a bit. But if you had it up, it actually across the middle will show you the correct orientation of things. Above it will cause it to do convex, and if you wait a little bit below that, you'll actually notice it'll start going concave. And you don't believe me, then I'll show you the footage from this as this balloon, and we're going to burst the balloon on Mikey's evidence right now. Watch and see. So this is just an apogee of where that balloon was. This is the same one. See how it's just below center frame, and this is where Mikey's going to claim it's flat. But watch, I'm going to burst this balloon in 2 seconds here. Whoa, look at all that. See how it's all moving all over the place? This is the lens with lots of barrel distortion, fisheye lens. And flat earthers try to claim that this shows a flat earth, but they don't let you know which lens you're using. In which case here, it's very clearly this lens has a lot of barrel distortion. This is flat earth debunked right here. I just burst this balloon. So this is a high altitude rocket done by an amateur rocket designer named Kip Douglas. Now he chose a rectilinear lens that doesn't have, minimizes, it has no barrel distortion. As you can see here, it shows how high it went, and you can see that how it's not moving around. That's showing the true shape of the Earth. Let's have a look at this.
Launch detected. Booster burnout. 20,000 feet. 30,000 feet. 35,000. Sustainer ignition. 40,000. 50,000 feet. Sustainer burnout. 80,000. 100,000 feet. 120,000. 140,000. 160,000. 180,000. 200,000 feet. 220,000. 240,000. 260,000. 280,000. 290,000. 'The Apogee deployment charge has fired. Max altitude 293,485 feet. Max velocity Mach 4.18. Apogee was northwest at a distance of 10.6 miles.
So here's the screenshots from the video. You can see how this is curved, even though it's slightly off the side and below the horizon. This is definitely below the center of frame. It's still showing curvature, and the same curvature even higher up. This is proof of Earth's curvature. So there you have it. Not using NASA at all, but using amateur rocket, you can clearly see the curvature of the Earth, and I have debunked Mikey's claim here. So let's move on to the next one. Yes, the whole like planes can't fly over a sphere thing. Alright, this is another misconception from flat earthers. What they don't realize is that a lot of planes, and they have done for many years, that could go a lot further when flight got where they could cover great distances, had to compensate for this when it comes to altitude indicators. So they would have something like pendulous vanes, which has like a port that if you have, as you have a slow, has actual weights in it. It's not thinking of a different system. Has weights in it that as the slow motion will go over the curvature of the Earth, which they'd have to kind of move the altitude indicator every 8 minutes. It can actually do it every 5 minutes, so it can maintain that orientation up and down in relation to the gravitational pull of the Earth. Now, quick movements up and down, pitching up and down, then you can maintain and show the attitude and whatever they're doing quite easily, because it has to be a very slow movement. And this is shown very easily if you look at many different pilots. You can show this. I think there's a fella named Jesse, or Path of Light. He's on different things. He's showing this. He's actually had a few different and Wolfie 6020, he's showing this. He's actually had gotten a hold of one of these old attitude indicators, and he showed exactly how it worked. Now, a lot of modern aircraft, like your big commercial planes, they use something like an INS system, which is a inertial navigation system, and it actually has accelerometers that feel the downward vector of the gravitational pull of the Earth, and so they're able to make sure that attitude indicators stays perpendicular to the gravitational pull of the Earth. Now, how planes really fly is they maintain altitude. How they sense that altitude is by air pressure. So as they're going along, you can feel, it knows they have the sensors that can detect the air pressure going around the Earth. So at a certain altitude, we have a certain amount of air pressure that drops off. Now this is all around the whole entire globe. So all they gotta do is just maintain that air pressure, which they know is what at that certain altitude what the air pressure is, and they can go over top of the Earth, not a problem. This is just something that flat earthers simply just don't understand. Is the very, very basics of this flight mechanics and how aerodynamics works. So a plane, just by maintaining staying at a certain altitude of air pressure, then they can go around the curvature of the Earth without a problem. Unfortunately, flat earthers aren't very smart. And this also is down to the plane, even though it's flying, it is creating a lift with the wings. It is still subject to the downward vector of gravity. Gravity is still pulling them down to the center of the Earth. So if a plane slows down too much, then it starts to drop off, right? A lot of planes actually have a 3-degree pitch up, and this is called an attack angle, which has to do with moving the air over the, creating enough lift, and having air go over the top of the wings compared to the bottom of the wings. So I'll show you a couple examples of pendulous vanes and INS system, so you get the idea. Also, one more thing is how a lot of times planes can maintain their altitude is simply by using thrust. So they will set their pitch angle, their attack angle, and then if they want to increase altitude, they increase thrust, and they'll increase altitude up. And if you want to lower it a little bit, they just throttle back a bit, and the plane will drop down. They actually don't change in flight. They change their attack angle very much. All they have to do is just throttle up or throttle down. And this is why you see when you see a plane landing, it can land still, it can go down, but it's still pitched up. How is this? They simply have reduced the airspeed that much, and as you come down, they're throttled down, they're slowing down, they're dropping down, they're maintaining, and then sometimes you hear them throttle up a bit, and it's just because they drop it a little too fast, so you throttle up to stop so they can land, so they come down a little bit slower. So as they're coming in, sometimes you're throttle up, and that's just because they're descending a little bit too fast, and obviously they're going to wreck the landing gear, and it can end up being a very bad situation. So you're hearing throttle up just the very last second to stop the descent being as fast, and so it kind of causes a bit of a rise, and then they can throttle down and they can adjust to have a nice gentle landing. So I'll throw up a few things here and I'll show you what I was talking about. So here's an example of a few planes landing. This is a relatively big one, and as you can notice, it's depending on the plane, but you can notice he's actually slightly pitched up nose, and then he goes back first, then lands to the front. But yeah, he's still heading down. Here's another one. Now they're pitched up, but yet they're descending down, and this is simply down to the amount of for the attack angle and this amount of throttle. That's how they make these landings. So this is a few examples here of planes landing. And it's just simply down to the fact of how much thrust they have, and then they can pitch up, and you have flaps and everything else they do, which helps disturb the amount of airflow over top of the wings, which can help to control their landings and stuff. I grew up with a friend of mine. His dad was a commercial pilot for many, many years, and he explained a lot of this to myself. So this kind of explains the four fundamental forces that are affecting a plane while in flight. Here's a diagram of an attitude indicator with the pendulous vanes in the bottom. You can see the pendulous unit. See, here's INS system, and as you can see, it has accelerometers, which are situated for the direction of gravity and move into the plane. And then it has motors on for different sides, that if it doesn't feel the fast motion of the plane and inputs, then it actually will change this to situate for the downward vector of gravity. So that's another one of Mikey's claims that completely debunked and falsified using facts, evidence, and logic. Let's move on to the next one and see what else he's got. Alright, now this is saying some about perspective, which flat earthers don't understand. This is something flat earthers like to try to peddle all the time, that we see too far, or our eyes limited to the perspective. Unfortunately, flat earthers don't understand perspective very well, and they use it many times in the wrong sort of place. Asper said something about us seeing features of the moon. Well, the moon is 1/4 the size of the Earth. Remember, the Earth is very, very big. And a lot of things we see are massive, huge craters and massive, huge mountains that are absolutely humongous. And we can only see bits of them. Even with a very good telescope, we can't see a single rock on the surface of the moon and many other very fine things. Like, we can't see the Apollo landers that are still on there right now because they're too small for us to see from this far away. As for the distance to the moon, it's been proven many ways, using radio signals, using lasers, using probes. We've sent stuff there. We know exactly how far it is. Or you can even use something like a bit of math, a little bit of trigonometry, a couple friends, and you can calculate the distance to the moon. And this actually has been done. If you look at the optometrist's website, you can see that the range of the human eye has no limit. It's infinite unless there's something in the way. So if you have hills, mountains, the curvature of the earth, mist, clouds, then something may be blocking us. But if it's a very, very clear day, there's actually no limit. As long as that light can reach our eyes, we can see it. And that's a fact. Okay, now this one here, water finds its own level. This is one that's very common from flat earthers, and they don't understand the physics. So yeah, this is a very common thing that flat earthers try to push all the time, and they think this is like a gotcha for the globe versus the flat earth. What it kind of stems down to is that, well, flat earthers don't understand the physics and of how water works. And the fact that water is subject and moves to any forces acting upon it. Now, in the Earth's scope, in this kind of paradigm, the flat Earth, they think because the Earth is flat and everything has to go down, it has to contain, like, say, like a bowl or like a plate that has an edge around it. But what they understand is that is because of the gravitational pull of the Earth below it, the Earth that we're on. So when they try to put this out, we think, okay, well, and I heard Mikey say this, the whole thing of like the globe, right? So here's a globe here, right? Now what Mikey's trying is he tries to say, if you pour water on this, it's going to fall, it's going to go like here, it's going to stay up here, and it's going to go and fall down here. Well, that's because below this globe is the Earth, and the Earth has a gravitational pull that's pulling it down. But what we actually have, let's say this is the middle of the Earth, is that the gravity is actually pulling it towards the center. So this is down, that's down, that's down, that's down, that's down, that's down. Everything on here is down. Everything is down towards the ground. Now this is a very common thing I hear flat earthers all the time. They can't explain is the fact is they don't understand what down. Down is not up here, and down is not down here. Okay, south is not down and north is not up. You can have this globe any way you want in space. Doesn't really matter, right? In space, down is towards the ground, up is away from the ground. So down is towards the center of the Earth, up is away from the Earth. That's plain and simple. So in Russia, that's down, this is up. Australia, that's down, this is up. Doesn't matter where it is, doesn't matter where it associates. So water finds its own level in relation to the gravitational pull of the Earth. Gravitational pull of the Earth is always pulling it down, and because that's the force. We have a downward force going towards the ground, towards the center of the Earth. So no matter what, the gravitational pull is always pulling water this way. Pulling it that way, right? And if you take water and go into space or into zero gravity, 0G, then the force that's acting upon water is its own like surface tension, right? So surface tension, and it's the bond of the molecules of the water that binds it together, and the shape it will take is a sphere. If you take water, and this is shown on ISS all the time. I'll show you a few pictures to kind of show you what the example. But if you have water in zero reference frame, like a no downward reference frame, then it'll take a spherical shape. Now, example of this on Earth, it's easy. Raindrops, or any kind of drop. You drop water, just let it go. Use a slow motion camera, it will take a spherical shape. All raindrops are actually a sphere until they hit the ground, and then because then it hits some surface, then the gravitational pull, it's not acting upon it. So as it's falling in free fall, it's equaled out. The falling, the acceleration down, or to the Earth's pull of 9.8 meters per second squared is equalized, and so then the water's surface tension will take a spherical shape. When it hits the ground, then obviously gravity is going to overcome the surface tension of the water, and it's going to go flat out. Except if we put a drop, if we put a small drop on like a piece of like parchment or baking paper, it will actually be a dome, and it'll be almost a kind of a squashed out sphere. And I got pictures. You can do that easily. Take a drop of water, put it on like a plate, put it on like a piece of parchment paper, like wax paper, and look at it. It will be a round spherical shape. And that's because it's not enough. The surface tension of a small drop of water is stronger than the gravitational pull to pull it all the way out. So it keeps itself bond, but it's going to it'll kind of be flattened out. This is something that's very simple, and it's explained to flat earthers all the time, but they just don't quite understand this. I'll show you a few pictures that what I mean on the ISS when you have in low gravity, like a low gravity environment or a zero gravity environment, and what water actually does. There we go. All right. So now, as I was saying, one drop of water on a bit of parchment paper. As you can see, it's taken very much of a spherical shape. Now it's being, obviously, gravity is still pushing down on it a little bit, down that way, right? So gravity is still pushing it down that way, but the surface tension is holding it into much more of a shape like that. So this is what I'm talking about. Here's a few screenshots from videos in which you can look on YouTube and see water in zero gravity and how it takes spherical shape. This proves the flat Earth claim. Ah yes, halfway through now, number 5. The Chicago from 60 miles away, and they say that it's not possible on the globe. And this is false as well. This is another one that flat earthers just simply don't understand and often lie about, actually. The Joshua Nowicki photograph of Chicago wasn't, they often say it was done from sea level. It wasn't. It was actually done from well over 100 feet up on the sand dunes. And when you look at the skyline, and I'll show you a video from Josh Nowicki from 2015, you can see there's a bit missing there. Like most of the city, actually, you can't see the port, you can't see the docks, you can't see most of the smaller buildings. All you can see is very, very tall buildings of the skyline after a certain point up. And when you actually look into this and look at all the facts and realize where he took us from this altitude, from the altitude of the buildings, it actually conforms to the globe perfectly. This has been proven countless times, many, many times, so flat earthers always just scream, "Nuh-uh," and run away. But unfortunately, this actually falsifies the flat Earth, and it's actually evidence for the globe, because it fits the globe perfectly. Here's a screenshot from the video from 2015. And as you can see, you can only see the tops of the high-rise buildings and nothing more. Now here is a time lapse from that day when they actually done this. Now you can see the refractive, the lighting change, and you get a bit clearer vision of the skyline. You can see you cannot see after a certain point down. There's I think it's at 20 stories or something like that. Below that, you can't see any of the skyline. You can't see all the other small buildings there. Nothing. This falsifies the flat Earth and conforms to the globe perfectly. You see, there's a lot more to this than just that for Chicago. As you can see, here's the Chicago skyline, and you can see there was a lot of that skyline missing from that photograph in that video. I wonder why. And that's easily explained on the globe. The simple fact is that the curvature of the Earth was blocking a lot of those shorter, smaller buildings. And so you couldn't see them because looking over the water, which they always say water is flat, as the previous one, but water conforms to the curvature of the Earth. That's what level actually means. And that observation there, you can very clearly see that there's a lot that was missing from the skyline. It was blocked by the curvature of the Earth. So thanks for flat earthers. Whenever they show this, all they're doing is showing evidence of the curvature of the Earth, which conforms to the globe and falsifies their flat Earth. Let's move on. Ah yes, talking about flight paths. This is something that flat earthers often lie about or just don't understand. This thing here is just blatant lies. Not all flights from the south go to the north, and they're not all fuel stops. A lot of those are called connecting flights. And why they have connecting flights or layovers and stuff is because it has to do with economics. So one thing flat earthers don't understand, not only is it just basic science, geometry, and basic maths, we also understand basic economics. Economics like to fly from, let's say, you're going to fly from New Zealand, and there's not enough people that want to go from New Zealand to, like, say, Santiago, which that actually does happen at least two times a week. But let's just say a flight isn't going that way. But they can hop a flight and maybe it's going to Los Angeles. Maybe a lot more people going there. So hop on the flight, go to Los Angeles. Maybe for Los Angeles, then there is a flight that are heading down to South America. Then so there's a go there. Yeah, they have a connecting flight. You jump on a plane that's going from Los Angeles down there because maybe your flight, you can't get a direct flight when you need one. There are flights, but maybe you need one at a certain time. Or there isn't enough people all going to one location. So they'll have connecting flights where for one location there's not enough people, but to put some on. Then those people get off one location, they get onto that plane, and then they'll continue on to the next one. This is how it helps. So the plane flights are aircraft companies are having full planes, because a full plane is what makes money, right? If you only have a plane that's got half the people on there, you're still spending pretty much the same amount of money. You still have to pay the same crew to do the same flight, but you're not making the money and it's not economically viable. So connecting flights are one way to often get around this, where people can still get what they need to go to. It might take a bit longer, but you can still get to where you go to and within the time frame. Now, as planes get able to do longer distances, sometimes they have more direct flights, because back in the day, maybe in the 1950s, 60s, planes don't have the range they do now or the speed. But also it depends on the connections. If there's comes a need to have a direct flight and is financially viable, then aircraft companies often will do this. Let's have a few looks, because they claim in here that all flights from the south go to the north, and that is empirically wrong. Ideally, there's ones from Santiago, Chile to Brisbane, and there's also ones that go from Australia that go to Johannesburg, direct flights. I'll show you a couple down. Right, so here's one that's in flight right now as we speak. So it's going from Santiago, Chile to Melbourne, which is in Australia, for those who don't know. It has been is scheduled to arrive at 12:45 a.m. It's left 12:45, scheduled to land at 5:15. Estimated to 5:18, so running a beat behind. It had left 7 hours and 30 minutes ago, and it's still got another 6 hours and 45 minutes. This is a flight that happens, that goes from the southern hemisphere, starts in South America, pardon me, and it will land in Melbourne, Australia. Then we have, let's see here, that's Christchurch. There's another one here I've seen. Tasmania, where's the other guy? Auckland, Sydney, no. There is actually a second flight that's en route right now. So this one here from Santiago, Chile. There's another one here. That's going from Santiago, Chile to Auckland, which is in New Zealand. We have Auckland to Santiago. So we have, currently right now, we have 1, 2, 3 flights in the air right now. All of them starting from South America, and all of them going to Australia. This would be impossible on a flat Earth to make that journey. You also notice that doing a great circle route, and this is because this is the fastest route on a globe. Now, I bet you we could probably find one. Hold on here. Let's see if we can find one that goes from South Africa to Australia. And here we have one that's in flight right now, going from Sydney, Australia to Johannesburg. Once again, this is all staying in the southern flight. You can see the flight. This has been tracked by GPS. So starting from Australia there, this flight has flown all the way along here, and now is approaching Johannesburg, which is in South Africa. For those who don't know, this once again would be an impossible flight on a flat Earth, but as you can see, use a great spherical route. This works perfectly on the globe. Now, this are flights currently happening happening right now. As I shoot this video, these flights are in the air. Flat Earthers, please explain how these flights work. And these flights are happening. They are being tracked as we speak. Once again, you get all the information you need for them. And just for anybody who wants to know, MC Toon put a video up of Critical Think, who lives in Australia, him flying from Santiago, Chile to Australia, and it took just slightly over 11 hours. It's actually an 11-hour video because he did from getting onto the plane and flying non-stop. So going through the airport, onto the plane, getting on the plane, non-stop flight, non-stop video, all the way to landing in South America. This falsifies flat Earth, just that flight alone. And the evidence is on the internet. If you want to go see it, you can sit there and watch an 11-hour flight and watch them fly. You're more than welcome to. I have a life and I have better things to do. But I have had a quick looking over it, and yes, it 100% did happen. So there you have it. I was able to actually show live data of proof as we speak of planes in the air that you can track and you can see. And what completely falsifies the flat Earth, just those flights alone. That's it. Flat Earth is falsified, globe is confirmed. So, just that alone, I can debunk the flat Earth. But let's continue on and let's debunk the rest of them. Right, jet streams. They often claim this, but I don't think flat earthers even know what causes the jet stream. But let's look into it. Right, so don't know where flat earthers get this idea of how the jet streams prove flat Earth and disprove the globe. For one thing is, you see how the outside of the globe is, that flat Earth is, that they claim the Earth is flat and stationary, doesn't move. So how is it the outside, circumference of theirs, where they have the southern jet streams, how are they moving so much faster than northern ones? And what's causing that? Flat earthers actually can't explain this. But this is explained perfectly on the globe. And let me show you. Alright, so the jet stream is different high altitude winds in the northern and southern parts of the Earth, and it always goes tracks from west to east. Now this is down to mainly the curvature of the Earth and the Coriolis effect. And the Coriolis effect is what causes the winds to never actually drop below the equator. Now it can affect different things like weather patterns and stuff like that. And obviously the waviness of the jet stream is down to the temperature variations and depends on the hot air, cold air, and it goes back and forth. The jet streams are always stronger during the winters of each northern and southern region of the Earth. Here's a diagram from NOAA's website. You can go look it over and it explains in great detail how the jet streams work and how they work because of the Coriolis effect, which is evidence the globe and falsifies the flat Earth. So as you can see there, because the Earth is actually a sphere and it is rotating once every 24 hours, this is what causes jet streams to travel from west to east. They always travel a west to eastern path, and they vary in strength depending on temperature. Obviously, the lower the lower temperature, the greater temperature variation between the tropics and the northern or southern hemisphere, like in the around the poles, is what causes the winds to vary. And also it can cause where the jet streams can come further down or come further up, depending on just different thermal events and stuff within the atmosphere, hot and cold, and obviously temperature variations. Now the jet streams, they move like this because of the Coriolis effect. And the Coriolis effect obviously affects which way storms rotate. In the southern hemisphere, they rotate clockwise. Northern hemisphere, they rotate counterclockwise. This is down to the rotation of the Earth, which is actually very strong evidence of why the Earth is rotating. And the jet streams actually prove this, are evidence for the globe and evidence for the Coriolis effect, and falsifies the flat Earth claims that the Coriolis effect isn't real and that the Earth isn't rotating. This is why the jet streams are what they are and how the way they travel they do, because of the rotation of the Earth. And Flat Earth can't explain this. Flat Earth fails to explain any of this except for maybe using some magic thing. Like maybe some claim, not all of them, because Flat Earthers can't agree on this, but they claim maybe something to do with aether winds or aether drift and stuff like that, which the aether was disproved by Michelson Morley back in the 1800s, and it has been done many other times. The experiment with greater accuracy, and every single time the experiment is done, it shows aether. It does not exist. It's nothing but a fantasy, and this gets falsified and proves Einstein's special relativity. So, let's move on to the next one. Oh yes, like I said, first to understand perspective, and they don't understand corpuscular rays. But as I said, like this one here proves it. Flat earthers don't understand perspective. Sorry, it's a bit warm today. So they suddenly think that the Earth, the Sun, is not 93 million miles away, even though we have actually measured the distance to the Sun using radar waves, using transit of Venus, transit of Mercury, just simple, trigonometry. And the fact that we have like the Parker Solar Probe and the ESA Solar Probe that are currently orbiting the Sun right now, taking readings. But that's just show kind of the difference on how corpuscular rays work, because flat earthers don't quite understand, like I said, perspective and how you look at, from different vantage points, how they're actually going to look. So I'll show you a few examples, stuff that I've took, and I'll show you something from corpuscular rays, but from straight up from a plane, and we'll see if there's a difference. So here, this fence here is going to represent what flat earthers think that all these lines we drew them are going to point straight to the Sun. So unless that Sun is just across this field, I think something doesn't seem to be adding up for the flat earthers. And especially when you look at the exact same location, but looking from the top, you can see that while they look like they're diverging each way and pointing from the top, they're actually all parallel and work perfectly fine. This is perspective. It's something that flat earthers don't seem to understand. Here's another video of me. I'm walking along a parking lot. There's all sorts of different these posts and stuff like that. But now you look, see, first I look parallel. But now if I look from this angle here, you obviously can see the Sun there and come down. Now it looks like they're all diverging. So unless the Sun is directly above that house and sitting on its roof, then the flat earthers claim that corpuscular rays prove a local Sun seems to be falsified here quite easily. As you can see, these are actually all parallel to each other, but if you look at using the laws of perspective and crouch down, flat earthers would have to claim that that Sun is sitting on the roof of the house over beyond past the parking lot here. See, look, but they're all diverging away from me, so unless flat earthers are going to claim that the Sun is just right there. There you are. So if I draw all those lines, then that Sun is just across the street from me. But yet, we obviously know it's not. So this is perspective that flat earthers don't understand. And this is the same idea behind corpuscular rays. Also, they claim that a post can't block the Sun, but down to right angular size, I show that it easily can. The same post, oh look, it blocked the Sun. And oh, the other side, oh no. Is that post behind or in front of the Sun? Holy crap. Now this is corpuscular rays seen from very high up. I think this is from the ISS. You can see that they are parallel. Here's another picture of corpuscular rays from the very top. And here's anti-corpuscular rays. So kind of like train tracks, which diverge both ways. It's just like the corpuscular rays from the Sun. They look like they converge into a single point, but they actually don't. They're parallel to each other, but due to perspective, they look like they converge, coming towards and away from us. So look at those examples there. Seeing how I can simply manipulate how the corpuscular rays, I can simulate it with just using like the Sun going through a fence. We have the fence posts or like that we know are parallel to each other, but yet perspective, you come down, it looks like they're all splitting out and they're going to converge to a single point. But we know the Sun isn't just across a field or just on the other side of that parking lot. But when you look at it from the top, you can see that they actually are all parallel. And this is the perspective that flat earthers seem to either don't understand or deny that actually happens. But like we see corpuscular rays and you see anti-corpuscular rays. So corpuscular rays, the light's heading towards you. Anti-corpuscular rays, the light is heading away from you. And it converges back to a point. But just like the train tracks, which we know train tracks are always parallel to each other, has the same exact effect. So it doesn't actually show that the sun is local, and because the rays are converging to a point, like flat earthers try to claim, and saying that the Sun is actually local to us. But it's simply down to the fact that we're very small. There's rays heading towards us. they look like they come out and they come back together, and this is just down to the laws of perspective. But in reality, we have measured how far the sun is, and we know for 100% fact that the sun is 93 million miles away on average. So that's debunked. Let's move on to the next one. Yes, the whole denial of gravity. Flat earthers seem to deny this, but they don't actually understand it whatsoever. So this is something that flat earthers seem to not have a idea what they're talking about, and then they deny it. And they deny it because for them to admit anything to do with gravity would falsify their flat Earth, because the gravitational pull due to mass attracting mass and bending space-time, which is kind of where you have Newtonian gravity, which we use below everyday stuff, and then you do general relativity, where you're getting close to bigger masses, faster speeds, getting closer to light speed, and then when you get light speed, you got special relativity, which all works together. None of it falsifies each other. It all actually works. It explains. General relativity is better for faster speeds and larger like bodies, like planets and stuff like that, as it's a bit more accurate. But Newtonian calculations work perfectly fine for day-to-day stuff, and in fact are still used to this day, even when it comes to like launching rockets and launching satellites and stuff like that. So that all works out perfectly fine. Now, the claim in this paper that buoyancy and density explains gravity, that's 100% false. For one, density is no force, has no force, it has no vector. Now buoyancy, on the other hand, buoyancy needs gravity. In the calculations to calculate if a boat is going to float on water, gravity is taken into account. It's part of the calculations when doing density calculations. And it's because buoyancy. And it's because buoyancy needs a downward vector, needs a downward force, being gravity, to cause the to help with the upward buoyant force. So it's kind of like a balance between two different things. So this is empirically false. Now we have many different ways we've actually tested gravity. One being the Cavendish experiment, which is done by anybody who does any kind of physics degree every single year in every single university around the world. We also have something like the Pound-Repka experiment and the Pound-Standard experiment, in which you use gamma radiation, and they tested the blue shift redshift over, I think it was a 70 meter tube that was vacuum, that was sealed away, and they accounted for any kind of electrostatics, electromagnetic forces, as well as they maintained the temperature within a sealed tube, and they had very sensitive instrumentation each end, in which they were able to test and confirm that the gravitational forces of the Earth affected gamma radiation, but if you went along the horizontal, it didn't actually have any effects whatsoever, proving this. They also have many other experiments that prove this. You have the LIGO experiment, in which LIGO was able to detect gravitational waves from supernovas way off in the universe, and there's just countless different examples. I've even shown a few home examples that you can do to show that how you can test gravity and prove that it works. The fact that we have an atmosphere where at sea level is 14.1 psi, but you go up, you have less density, you have lower psi. That's just simply down to gravitational effects. So we're pulling most of the atmosphere stuff is at sea level, as well as you got like something like gravitometers. There's a fellow named PhD Tony. He uses gravimeters, in which he can go around and he can actually use these devices that measures the gravitational pull of the Earth, and he can tell you where different gas or oil deposits are. And this is this part of his job, using gravity and gravitational effects, and the fact that how much we understand it, we're able to find million, if not billion-dollar oil deposits and stuff that a lot of these companies pay a lot of money for companies like his to be able to do, and they must understand gravity. In fact, even submarines, they have different devices on the submarines in which they can detect different gravitational effects of undersea mountains without ever being able to see them, and still having to use active sonar. So there's many different ways, and the fact that these flat earthers can't explain any of these, and this falsifies their flat earth once again. So yeah, I think that pretty much debunks all that. Everything I said is easily found, and you can test it. You can look at all the stuff up. Everything I mentioned, let's say the Pound-Repka experiment, Pound-Snyder experiment, the Cavendish experiment, the LIGO readings, and the fact how gravimeters work, and can be used to find something like oil deposits and different things within the Earth's crust, as well as different gravitational measurements all around the globe and how they differ, as well as if you think the gravitational effects from the North Pole compared to the equator and down to the South Pole, and how they actually differ because of tangential speed of the rotation of the Earth, which proves the rotation of the Earth, as well as also proves the gravitational pull of the Earth. So yeah, I think that's about it. We're going to move on to the next one. And last but not least, the boats disappear over the curvature, and Flat Earthers think you can zoom them all back in. But this is falsified easily. So this observation I took last year, seen about 30 seconds apart. I was up about 20 feet up and then I ran down a set of stairs onto the beach and took the picture again. Now as you can see, there's a massive difference, and that's due to the fact is that the curvature is starting to block the bottom of the boat here. Same zoom and everything. So as you can see from my observation there, I used a ship, not a little tiny boat. So what the problem is that Flat Earthers use like a little tiny personal motorboat or something like that that's just barely off, and then it's too small to be resolved using the camera, and then they zoom it back in, but they're using a little tiny boat. Every time we ask a Flat Earther to show a ship disappear over the curvature and zoom it back in, they gish gallop and run away from that. And that's because they know they can't. As you see my example there, I used a full cargo ship. Now, how come the fact is that all I had to do is go from the top of the stairs, run down the stairs, take another picture, only about 30 seconds apart. So the ship hadn't gone that much further. Because it's on the horizon at the top, when I went down, because I was lower, I couldn't see as far over the horizon because now I'm lower down, so I can't see, I'm not as high up to look down and over. Then you couldn't see the bottom part of that ship. I used the exact same camera, it wasn't down to any kind of atmospheric stuff like that suddenly it changed. It was simply the fact is that my altitude changed, and because of that I couldn't see as far over the curvature of the Earth. Now I'm going to show you a few other things, examples using full-size ships. Now if it was down to, let's say, like Flat Earthers try to claim it's like perspective, or they try to claim that it was because resolved. But yeah, if you can see the little antennas, you can see the little small parts of the boat, then why can't you see the biggest part, which is the hull? And they never can quite answer this question. But this completely falsifies and debunks the Flat Earth and validates the globe. So let's have a look and see. See, here we have three sister ships. They're all built exactly the same, look the same, yet the one closest to us you can see more of it, and then the one on the left is a little further away, and the one on the right is even further away, and you can see less and less of the exact same ships. Here we have a large cargo ship, and as it's moving away from us, you're seeing less and less and less of it. You can see the top part with the small little bridge and the small little cranes, but yet you can't see the hull. This is just spring over the curvature of the Earth. Flat Earthers can't explain this. So there you have it. I have now gone through Mikey Smith's little pamphlet there, and I have debunked every single claim he has put on there. I've used empirical facts, evidence, and logic, and I have falsified everything he has said or claimed. So Mikey hands all these out, but he's lying to every single person he has put this out. I'll be taking him in on this. Anybody who wants to look and see and go through all of Mikey's claims he said on there, I can show you facts and evidence to disprove it. I've always welcomed Mikey to come onto my stream. He can back up any of the stuff he ever wants, but he won't. He keeps running away and pretends it doesn't exist because he knows I'll falsify every single claim he's ever made or ever can make. And that's just plain truth of it. So thanks for watching. Don't forget to follow me for more videos, watch my live streams, click the like button when liking videos, click the subscribe, help me grow my numbers, help me get this out there, and let's falsify the Flat Earth delusional fantasy cult that's out there trying to push nothing but lies. Thanks for watching. See you again.
Stuff like that's why people quit Flat Earth, dude. You know? That's why people quit, dude.